Today, Musk now asking a federal tech check. It is getting spicy now, Steve.
Yeah, Carl, spicy to say the least, with Musk ramping up this lawsuit.
The View, once hailed for its bold, unfiltered conversations and fearless takes on the hottest topics, suddenly found itself caught in a whirlwind of over 30 defamation lawsuits. What had been a vibrant stage for fiery debates and sharp opinions quickly began to unravel, overwhelmed by mounting legal battles, financial strain, and relentless public criticism. Once a cornerstone of daytime television, the show now teetered on the edge of collapse.
I've been saying that I think Elon Musk believes he's president.
Over the top, it was like making everyone uncomfortable.
Really?
It was really over the top. You know, I mean, I think like sort of a passing joke of like, you know, a few passing jokes are fine, but they twisted the knife big.
I've been saying that I think Elon Musk believes he's president. I do.
Well, you can call him vice president.
I've called him vice president. I called him president because I don't know.
But in a world where legal battles could make or break a career, even the most untouchable celebrities were not immune. The Trump family quickly became one of Whoopi Goldberg's favorite targets, a name she rarely mentioned without throwing in a sharp jab or scathing critique. Whether it was Donald Trump himself, his children, or his inner circle, she always had something to say, and it was hardly ever flattering. She accused them of being tangled in elaborate conspiracy theories, hinting at secretive backroom deals and shady political maneuvers that, in her view, were undermining democracy from the inside out. But Goldberg didn't stop there. In a move that left many baffled, she set her sights on an unlikely figure, Carrie Underwood. The beloved country music star, known for her powerhouse vocals and wholesome image, suddenly found herself pulled into Whoopi's web of accusations. Goldberg suggested that Underwood wasn't just a talented singer. She was allegedly part of some covert power play in the entertainment industry, working behind the scenes to manipulate media narratives and shape public perception. The claim was so outlandish, so unexpected, that even Whoopi's most diehard fans weren't quite sure what to make of it. And then there was Joe Rogan, a name that always ignited fierce debate. Rogan had long been a divisive figure, with millions of loyal listeners flocking to his wildly popular podcast. But Whoopi viewed him as a dangerous influence, someone recklessly peddling misinformation under the guise of open conversation. She didn't hold back, labeling his show irresponsible and harmful, accusing him of giving a platform to voices she felt had no business being heard. She painted his podcast as a breeding ground for deception, a space where half-truths and outright lies thrived without any accountability. In the early days, it seemed like Whoopi could do no wrong. She had spent decades carving out a name for herself in the entertainment world as someone who always spoke her mind, no matter the consequences. An Academy Award-winning actress, a celebrated comedian, and a television powerhouse, Whoopi had built a career on bold takes and fiery rhetoric. It was exactly this fearless approach that had kept her in the spotlight for so long. In her world, controversy wasn't something to avoid. It was a tool, a weapon that kept her relevant in a constantly shifting media landscape. She probably believed her celebrity status was an invisible shield, protecting her from the kind of backlash that could crush an average person. A single tweet from an unknown figure could ignite a firestorm and ruin careers. But Whoopi, she was untouchable. Or so she thought. She sat at the helm of one of the most watched talk shows on television, backed by a network that had stood by her through every heated debate and fiery moment. She held power, influence, and an unshakable belief that she could speak her mind freely, whenever she wanted, with no real consequences in sight.
But apparently, his wife has different thoughts on the reproductive rights after posting this video plugging her memoir.
But the tides were starting to shift. The entertainment world was evolving, and the very immunity Whoopi had relied on for so long was beginning to erode. Her critics were no longer just venting into the void. They were taking action. Lawsuits piled up, networks grew uneasy, and advertisers began to rethink their partnerships. The warning signs were clear, but whether Whoopi saw them or simply chose to ignore them was another question entirely. Whoopi Goldberg seriously misjudged the power and resources of the people she was targeting. She had built her reputation on speaking without a filter, tossing out accusations with little regard for the fallout. But this time, it wasn't just about stirring up controversy for ratings. She was venturing into perilous territory, tossing around claims that weren't just exaggerated, but entirely unverified. Her words weren't merely provocative, they were reckless. And in an era where instant fact-checking and legal repercussions are the norm, that was a gamble she could no longer afford to take. For years, she had leaned on her celebrity status as a shield, believing it would protect her from any fallout. She spoke with the confidence of someone untouchable, certain that her legacy, industry ties, and the unwavering loyalty of her audience would be enough to keep her safe. But reality hit harder than she ever imagined. Once the legal floodgates opened, that illusion shattered. Over 30 defamation lawsuits came crashing down, each one a brutal reminder that her words had consequences. Far heavier ones than she'd ever accounted for. The people she targeted weren't just public figures with bruised egos. They were individuals with vast financial resources, top-tier legal teams, and the tenacity to see the fight through to the bitter end. Elon Musk, a billionaire known for never shying away from public disputes, sat at the top of the list. Goldberg had taken numerous jabs at him, painting him as an out-of-touch billionaire whose ventures were little more than vanity projects. She accused him of selfishness, arrogance, and even suggested darker motives behind his technological ambitions and the world of television. Such comments might have been brushed off as playful banter. But Musk saw them differently. And he wasn't alone. Carrie Underwood, who had shockingly found herself dragged into Goldberg's conspiracy-driven rhetoric, wasn't about to let baseless accusations threaten her career. Joe Rogan, no stranger to controversy himself, wasn't the type to sit idly by while someone tried to paint his platform as a dangerous influence. And then there was the Trump family, arguably some of the most legally relentless figures in modern media. When Whoopi repeatedly targeted them, pushing narratives that could easily be torn apart in court. It was only a matter of time before they decided to fight back. The lawsuits began flooding in, one after another. And just like that, the dynamic shifted. Whoopi was no longer just a TV personality making bold statements. She was now a defendant in a legal war that threatened to unravel everything she had built. The network, once her staunchest ally, now found itself forced to weigh the cost of standing by her.
You know who? Stay away from the stairways. Because, people put the leg out to trip you going down the stairs.
Advertisers grew cautious, pulling away from the mounting controversy, while even some of her most loyal supporters began to wonder if Whoopi had finally crossed the line. What had once felt like an unstoppable ride of media dominance was now spiraling beyond her control. IT was one thing to spark debate. It was another to make claims that could withstand the scrutiny of a courtroom. And with powerful figures ready to push back, Whoopi found herself in an unexpected position, on the defensive, confronting the very consequences she once thought she was untouchable from. A billionaire tech titan with the power to reshape entire industries. Elon Musk wasn't about to let Whoopi Goldberg tarnish his name without pushing back. He had spent years battling critics, taking down competitors, and proving himself as a force to be reckoned with. But when Whoopi unleashed a barrage of accusations, painting him as out of touch, selfish, and even suggesting darker hidden motives behind his ventures, he reached his breaking point. Enough was enough. Musk didn't settle for a few sharp words on social media. That would have been too easy. Instead, he unleashed a legal onslaught so fast, so relentless, that Whoopi barely had time to grasp what was happening before she found herself thrust into a full-scale courtroom battle. His legal team, armed with the kind of resources only a multi-billionaire could afford, descended like a storm, picking apart every word she'd spoken, every reckless claim she'd flung into the public eye. This wasn't just about protecting his reputation anymore. It was war. And Musk was determined to make her feel every single blow. But before Goldberg could even catch her breath, the Trump family struck. If there was one group in the world known for playing hardball, it was them. For years, she had lobbed accusations their way, portraying them as architects of deep corruption, masterminds of conspiracy, and even hinting at criminal behavior. But what she didn't anticipate was that the Trumps didn't just fight back, they aimed for total destruction. Donald Trump, a man who had built his brand on never backing down, had watched from the sidelines long enough. He wasn't about to let Whoopi's words fade into the ether. He wanted her to pay.
If I believe I have the right to make up my mind to go perform someplace, I believe they have the same right.
Of course.
And so I have to, I have to support.
Publicly, legally, and financially, they struck back with a legal team as fierce as Musk's. The Trump family unleashed a bombshell defamation lawsuit against Whoopi, a move designed to make an example of her. This wasn't just about silencing a critic. It was about power. About proving that no matter how famous Whoopi was, no matter how long she'd reigned in Hollywood, she was not untouchable. She had walked into a battlefield with giants, and now they were closing in, ready to bury her under an avalanche of legal action that no network, no PR spin, and no fan base could shield her from. But then came the real shock. Carrie Underwood. And no one saw it coming. Of all the people Goldberg had called out, Underwood was the last one anyone expected to strike back. She wasn't a political firebrand, nor was she a billionaire with a battalion of lawyers at her beck and call. She was America's country sweetheart, a star known for her grace, talent, and squeaky clean reputation. Yet, when Whoopi accused her of pulling the strings behind the scenes in the entertainment industry, suggesting she was secretly manipulating award shows, controlling artists' careers, and bending the business to her will, Underwood did something no one expected. She fought back, a jaw-dropping move. Underwood's legal team filed their own lawsuit against Goldberg, labeling her claims as outrageous, slanderous, and aimed at dismantling an artist who had spent years building her career solely on talent. For Whoopi, this was the moment reality hit hard. She had spent years wielding her words like weapons, believing she could say whatever she wanted without repercussions. But now, the walls were closing in. The lawsuits piled up, and the very platform she had used to tear others down was now being used to bring her to her knees. And the worst part, There was no escape. An carefully crafted apology or PR spin could erase what was happening. The very power she had relied on for so long, her voice, had now become her greatest downfall. Carrie Underwood had spent years carefully crafting a flawless reputation, one built on raw talent, relentless work ethic, and an unshakable image of integrity. She wasn't one to get caught up in Hollywood drama, always choosing to let her music speak for itself. But when Whoopi Goldberg dragged her name into a storm of conspiracy, accusing her of secretly pulling strings in the entertainment industry, Underwood wasn't about to sit back and let her hard-earned legacy be rewritten by unfounded gossip. This wasn't just about public perception. It was about her entire career. The accusations, though ridiculous to many, held the power to plant seeds of doubt in the industry, casting a shadow over her success. And Underwood wasn't about to let that happen. She struck back with full force, filing a lawsuit that demanded millions in damages. This wasn't just a legal move, it was a declaration. She made it abundantly clear that she wouldn't let anyone, no matter how famous, tarnish her name without facing serious consequences. But while Underwood's lawsuit sent ripples through Hollywood, it was nothing compared to the wildfire that ignited when Whoopi went head-to-head with Joe Rogan.
So then the bakery has a press conference where they say, we've been in business for 150 years. This is not what happened at all. We don't discriminate against anybody, regardless of anything.
The saga of The View had already descended into chaos, but this confrontation pushed things to an entirely new level. What started as a seemingly minor dispute over a Staten Island bakery quickly snowballed into a nationwide controversy, further highlighting Whoopi's pattern of making inflammatory claims without checking the facts. Goldberg had publicly accused the family-owned bakery of discrimination, claiming they refused to take her order solely because of her political views. She spun the incident into yet another example of intolerance, using her platform to call out what she saw as political bias. Her words held weight, and almost immediately, the bakery found itself drowning in a storm of backlash. The problem? It wasn't true. The bakery, a beloved staple in the community for generations, immediately pushed back. They weren't making any political statement. They had simply experienced a boiler malfunction that prevented them from taking large orders that day. There was no grand conspiracy, no hidden agenda, just a technical glitch. But by the time they managed to clarify the situation, the damage was already done. Whoopi's accusation had ignited a firestorm, with angry social media mobs descending on the business, calling for boycotts and accusing the owners of discrimination. The bakery's reputation, carefully built over decades, was now hanging by a thread, all because of a single unfounded claim broadcast to millions, and that's when Joe Rogan stepped into the ring. Never one to shy away from a heated debate, Rogan took it upon himself to set the record straight. He devoted an entire segment of his podcast to the issue, dismantling Whoopi's accusations and highlighting just how dangerous her unchecked words had become. He called out her reckless behavior, labeling it yet another example of mainstream media figures wielding their influence irresponsibly. But Rogan wasn't just defending the bakery. He was making a broader point. He exposed how celebrities like Goldberg had long been able to shape narratives without facing consequences, pushing false or misleading claims with no real accountability. But this time, things were different. The tide had shifted, and Whoopi wasn't just facing public backlash. She was now up against legal battles, industry pushback, and a growing army of powerful figures calling her out in ways she had never experienced before. What had begun as a simple talk show controversy had rapidly spiraled into something far more perilous, something with the power to bring her entire career crashing down. The situation had gone from bad to worse, and the walls were closing in fast. The bakery, a proud family-owned institution that had served its community for over 150 years, wasn't about to let Whoopi Goldberg's accusations slide. In a tense, high-stakes press conference, the owners stood firm before a sea of reporters and cameras, their voices resolute as they set the record straight. "This is not what happened at all," they declared. "We have never and will never discriminate against anyone for any reason. Our business has been built on integrity, and we will not allow these false claims to tarnish what we've spent generations building." The damage had already been done, but they weren't just fighting to restore their reputation. They were fighting for their survival, and just when it seemed like the situation couldn't get any more volatile, Joe Rogan entered the fray. Rogan, a man who had never backed down from controversy, saw this as a glaring example of the unchecked power wielded by mainstream media figures like Goldberg. He wasn't just angry. He was determined to ensure that Whoopi faced real consequences for what he saw as reckless, reputation-shattering rhetoric. The bakery was merely another casualty in a much larger battle, and Rogan wasn't about to let this slip by unnoticed. He took to his massive platform, one that reached millions of loyal listeners and followers, to dismantle Whoopi's claims, piece by piece. With his signature unapologetic tone, he called her out directly, labeling her accusations as nothing more than baseless gossip, the kind of misinformation that had real-world consequences. But Rogan didn't stop there. He went further. His legal team moved at lightning speed, filing a defamation lawsuit against Goldberg. The charges were serious. Rogan's team argued that not only had her comments damaged the bakery, but they were also part of a broader pattern of reckless accusations that were now starting to tarnish his own public image. He made it clear, Whoopi wasn't just tossing out opinions. She was making statements capable of destroying businesses, reputations, and careers. And now, for the first time, she was the one facing the consequences. What made Rogan's counterattack even more devastating was the sheer force behind it. Unlike the network-backed machine of The View, Rogan operated independently. His podcast was one of the most influential media platforms in the world, with an audience that far outpaced most traditional TV networks. When he spoke, people listened, and when he called out Whoopi, the backlash against her grew exponentially. His supporters, millions strong, rallied behind him, amplifying his message and flooding social media with their outrage. The pressure on Goldberg and The View was mounting. And for the first time, the narrative was slipping out of their grasp. This wasn't just a public feud. It was a reckoning. Whoopi had spent years dominating the conversation, controlling the headlines and steering controversy wherever she pleased. But now, she found herself on the other side of the storm, and the forces closing in on her weren't just fighting back. They were relentlessly advancing, unlike so many other celebrities who crumbled under the weight of backlash. Joe Rogan went straight for the jugular. He didn't just call out Whoopi Goldberg. He systematically dismantled her credibility, piece by piece. With his trademark no-nonsense style, he laid bare her hypocrisy, challenged her reckless claims, and made it painfully clear that she wouldn't get away with spinning false narratives without repercussions. But his countersuit wasn't just about clearing his name. It was a message, a loud, unmistakable warning to anyone foolish enough to think they could hurl baseless accusations without facing consequences. Rogan wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for everyone who had ever been unfairly targeted by powerful media figures who believed they were above reproach. With his army of loyal fans backing him, this wasn't just a legal battle. It had evolved into a full-scale cultural war, one where the stakes were higher than ever. The public spectacle that unfolded was unlike anything anyone had seen before. Every twist, every revelation, every counterattack became headline gold. The internet erupted with debates, memes, and endless coverage as Rogan's supporters flooded social media, fiercely pushing back against the mainstream narrative. Meanwhile, Goldberg and The View found themselves submerged in the very kind of scrutiny they had so often dished out to others. And the best part, this is only the beginning. The fallout from this battle is still unfolding, and you can bet there's more drama on the horizon. If you were glued to the moments when Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, and even Carrie Underwood stepped up to hold Whoopi Goldberg accountable, you won't want to miss what's coming next. So don't just sit back and let this saga slip by. Hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the notification bell, because trust me, this story is far from over. You won't want to miss what's coming. See you in the next one.